Dune Prophecy is a loose adaptation of a trilogy of books co-written by Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, and sci-fi author Kevin J. Anderson. The production of this show, which started in 2019, was somewhat troubled, with criticisms over a lack of female involvement, seeing a female showrunner hired to work alongside the original showrunner, John Spates, who eventually left to work on Dune Part 2. Denis Villeneuve, who was originally supposed to direct this series, also left to concentrate on Dune Part 2. A series of further departures left a new showrunner, Alison Shapker, and the new director, Anna Forster, to pick up the pieces. The focus is on the Bene Gesserit, the shadowy sisterhood manipulating events behind the scenes of the Imperium, who are also condescendingly known as witches. Coincidentally, it dropped in a year when two other genre shows about witches were released. Hopefully it's better than those.
Honestly, these were the best you could find.
I'm a pretty big fan of this property, having grown up with David Lynch's 1984 movie and reading Frank Herbert's masterpiece a bit later. But I haven't read every book out there, and I haven't read the novels this show is based on. From a little research, it seems like this show takes some liberties with its source material, as if that's new, and introduces some characters who were never in the books to begin with. Just know that this is about 2 times removed from Frank Herbert's original vision. Dune Prophecy takes place over 10,000 years before the birth of Paul Atreides, and 116 years after the War with the Machines ended. Mother Superior Valia and her sister Tula are running the Bene Gesserit and training truthsayers in a suspiciously Aes Sedai or Acolyte Space Witch type of setting, while advancing the breeding program that we know from the movies. There's a weak and indecisive emperor on the throne who's losing his grasp on Arrakis, and a great house is taking advantage of the situation when a mysterious soldier arrives from the desert planet with seemingly mystical powers that can be used to kill. The setup is quick and established in the first 10 minutes or so of the first episode, with a pretty cool intro about the Machine Wars and a synopsis of Mother Superior Raquella Berto Anirul. On her deathbed, the very first Mother Superior reveals a vision of the burning truth to Valia Harkonnen, a dark force that could destroy the Sisterhood, and Valia cements her place as the head of the Order by eliminating her rival using the voice. Which sounds really obnoxious when this actress does it for some reason. That's the background. And if you're not familiar with the expanded Dune novels, but just the Frank Herbert era Dune books, movies, or miniseries, i.e., those concerned with Paul Atreides and the empire he spawns, this might feel pretty disjointed in terms of just who these characters are or why they're behaving the way they do, but I'm sure a lot will be answered as the show goes on. At least I hope it is. I'll be getting into some spoilers in the episode rundowns, so if you don't want to know anything before you watch the show, skip to this time. Alright, here we go. In the first episode, we're shown that the Imperial Princess Inez is slated to study with the Bene Gesserit for 10 years, a supposedly common practice for noble women of the great houses. The sisters are obviously happy about it, because the Imperial throne can come under their influence. The Emperor, Yaviko Carino, is arranging a marriage between the 9-year-old son from House Richese and the princess in order to gain a fleet of ships, since his military position on Arrakis is tenuous. It seems the Fremen are sabotaging the spice harvesting again. Damn, things don't change much in 10,000 years, do they? A mysterious soldier, Desmond Hart, played by Ragnar Travis Fimmel, returns to Seleucus Secundus from Arrakis to tell the Emperor that things on Arrakis are not as they seem. The recent attack on a harvester wasn't done by the Fremen, but insurgents from allied worlds who stole the spice. Something's clearly not right with the guy, and the Emperor's truthsayer seems to know it. A betrothal or something takes place, and little Pruitt Richese's machine toy escapes, much to everyone's consternation, because that tech has long been outlawed.
That technology is forbidden!
And the Emperor lets it slide, because he's weak sauce. Inez doesn't waste any time putting her boy groom in his place.
Once our marriage goes through, you pull something like that again and I'll stab you myself, you little shit.
And then goes out to party with her half-brother at a club where there's a Fremen working the counter, for some reason. We get a further indication that something's special about the mysterious soldier, as someone's left a recording for the Emperor showing Desmond being consumed by a sandworm. And then Desmond takes the Emperor's cue over his disapproval of the marriage.
I tell you something, the gods freed me from this vice of a wedding. Consider me a true believer.
And solves the problem Archbishop of Canterbury style.
What? God save us. I said, who will rid me of this turbulent priest?
Using some kind of psychic power to roast the little Richese boy alive. Damn, that kid had a bad time of it. First his toy got smashed, then he was turned into a shish kebab. And that's not all. With the death of the boy, there's been a disturbance in the Force, and the Emperor's truthsayer, who'd flown to Wallach 9 to consult with the Mother Superior, is burned up from the inside as well. Episode 2 deals with the fallout from the events of the first episode, with Valia traveling to Seleucia Secundus to apprise herself of the situation in person. A very unapologetic Desmond freely admits he killed the boy and is promptly arrested. Valia tries her best to interrogate Desmond, and even later tries to use a voice on him, which he's able to resist. As the episode progresses, we see that there's a rebel group preparing to attack the royal palace and Emperor Corino, because the great houses are hoarding spice, which is somehow causing people to suffer. The pragmatic empress decides that Desmond would make a useful tool, and the imperial family quickly puts him to work intimidating House Richese, because they've been talking too much shit and threatening the emperor in the wake of their son's death. Meanwhile, back at Wallach 9, Lila, a young acolyte, undergoes the agony, the ritual to unlock her genetic memory, because her ancestor is the first Mother Superior who had knowledge of this burning truth that seems to be embodied in Desmond. It's a pretty cool scene and played well, especially when Lila stumbles upon her mother within the memory, who Valia used a voice on in episode 1. I'm sure that'll pop up later. And that's a quick and dirty rundown of episodes 1 and 2. The visual effects, settings, costumes, and CGI in general look really good, though the color palette leaves a lot to be desired, and the Bene Gesserit robes are austere to the point of generic. I'm sure it's intentional, but things feel pretty drab most of the time. And there's an instance of some highly suspect Guy Pearce makeup a la Prometheus on the first Mother Superior, but I guess that's because she'll feature in more flashbacks. Overall, visually, the show looks amazing. We're living in a time when TV series look just as good and high budget as movies do, so I can't fault that. It's a far cry from the 2000 miniseries, which I love, and is probably the most book-accurate adaptation out there, but visually suffered from the budget and the technology of the time. Unfortunately, the whole thing is slow-paced, but not in a captivating way. There are good slow burns, and there are boring slogs. This isn't completely boring, but it's not riveting either. My wife fell asleep about halfway through both episode 1 and 2 on different nights. Anecdotal, yes, but a pattern is forming, and she should have been the target audience for something like this. The most exciting parts are anything to do with Desmond Hart and his mind melting. Other than that, it's a lot of talking about some pretty mundane stuff, and some characters jockeying for position in a way that doesn't feel very organic. I didn't feel that many characters were really being developed or that the world was being explored through its dialogue in a way that Dune movies did it. This show is definitely giving off some warning signs. The Bene Gesserit novices are vapid and immature, despite some of them having lived and trained with the Sisterhood from birth, and they sound pretty much like every other group of girls written by YA writers, gossipy and overly hormonal.
Nothing I like more than a man with great wealth and idle hands.
And that YA feeling doesn't go away, from the princess and her training to the novices and their training. There's a lot of half-baked romance, like the should we, shouldn't we fling between the princess and her swordmaster, or the half-brother Constantine and his fling with the Richese daughter. It's tough to latch onto a character that's likable or charismatic. Emperor Yaviko is the weakest one out of the bunch, and has no gravitas whatsoever. I like Mark Strong in so many other roles, like in The Penguin, as Carmine Falcone, or any other number of characters he's played over the years. He's a great actor, but here he just feels inconsequential and unimperial. There's never a moment when he makes a decision of his own. It's usually his overbearing wife guiding him along or other people interpreting his will. The princess is manipulative and arrogant, going out partying on her betrothal night and banging her swordmaster while snorting and huffing spice or drugs or something. She's emotionally inconsistent, bragging about how she wanted to marry a 9-year-old boy so she could have more time to bend him to her will.
The boy is 9.
Every year before he comes of age is mine to do with what I will. I'd make him younger if I could.
And telling the kid off the very first time they meet, to being almost inconsolable after he's killed.
And prove it. He was just a kid.
Once our marriage goes through, you pull something like that again and I'll stab you myself, you little shit.
It's not communicated very effectively. Her brother-in-law, Constantine, also has that cheap YA feel and arrogance about him, romping around and giving up secrets to a rival family in a scene that was lifted straight from Game of Thrones. He's like a soap opera caricature of a handsome bad boy. Valia and her sister, who are supposed to be these master manipulators, pulling the great house's strings, are portrayed as matronly and emotionally fragile. These are the women, even now at this early stage, who are nudging the levers of power and implementing a cold and calculated eugenics program. It was rare to feel their power or intensity of purpose, except in the beginning and the flashback in episode 1. You see it from older Valia sometimes, but it doesn't come across as particularly convincing, not compared to the Bene Gesserit in either of the Dune movie adaptations. Sure, you could argue those are Bene Gesserit of a much more established order 10,000 years later, but with the things these women went through to get here, according to the source material, I was expecting some power brokers with steel spines and iron wills, and I'm just not seeing that.
I would advise against playing games with me. I will win.
The best character for me was the mysterious Desmond, though to be honest, Travis Fimmel plays him a lot like Ragnar, which seems to be a go-to for him. But his character seems to have the most to offer in terms of story development. He's enigmatic, unwavering, and willing to commit a few atrocities to fulfill his goal, which is apparently to protect the Imperium from the influence of the Bene Gesserit, via his mysterious powers he gained on Arrakis. Dune is famous for the kind of high intrigue that has made other properties with great houses jockeying for position so engrossing, like Battletech, beyond the giant mechs smashing other apart on the battlefield, or how Game of Thrones captured audiences' imaginations for years. And it's here too, but so far it lacks that immediacy and weight that other properties were able to capture so well. These first 2 episodes, overall, just weren't that engaging. I'll probably keep watching because I am a sucker for Dune, but hopefully things pick up. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below.
Everything's a joke to you. Why are you even here?